Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Her Majesty the Queen is celebrating her Platinum Jubilee in the United Kingdom this weekend. At a cost of £28 million, the government and the British establishment has promised the world a once-in-a-generation show to mark this historic occasion, and the organisers are yet to disappoint. Economists have forecast that London is set for a £100 million royal spending boost this weekend, with tourists pouring into the capital in numbers not seen since before the pandemic. Today's Channel's Business Global is a Platinum Jubilee special, where I'm joined by royal insiders who provide insight on this huge international event. Baroness Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, opens her office to Channel's Business Global for a sit-down interview assessing the change of mood among member states. John Clive Cecil May, OBE, the Secretary General of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation, joins me in the studio to discuss the impact of the royal scheme on millions of young people the world over. And throughout the show, we will listen to some analysis from other royal commentators that I've caught up with throughout the week. But first, let's have a look at some of the highlights from the celebrations thus far. Pomp and pageantry it is. Earlier I caught up with our correspondent Simon Pusey outside of Buckingham Palace to discuss the importance of soft power to the British economy. Simon, we're in Green Park. We've ventured outside of the studio for the first time in, a few years. Buckingham Palace is just a stone's throw away, but we can't get anywhere close because our invitation has been lost in the post. Clearly, London is set up for a blockbuster weekend.
Yeah, and I think the UK as well. I think millions of people have come to the UK from across the world to celebrate this. There's two bank holidays, usually only one at this point of the year, so it's a 4-day weekend. And I think it's a really nice break for people after 2 years of coronavirus and being locked away, to have a celebration, to have something to smile about. And there are going to be street parties. The government is saying it's a once-in-a-generation kind of showbiz party that they're throwing, and they're spending money on it. It's £2.3 billion that they're going to spend on it, but it's going to bring things to the economy as well. The UK hospitality industry says that about £2 billion is going to come in to the industry. That's obviously really important after lockdown and after so much turmoil for the restaurant industry and the hotel industry. And then I think just generally for morale, it's really important that people have a good time, especially after people have been locked away for so long. And also for the royal family, it's been a tough year or so for the royal family, with a couple of scandals to do with Prince Andrew, and then also you've also got Harry and Meghan and all that. So I think it's a nice thing for to happen for the UK and the UK economy. And I think it's about time. There's a lot of criticism also about the finances being spent on it, 2.3 billion being spent on it. People saying, is that the right money to be spent at a time when living standards are being squeezed and wages are sort of not rising with inflation? But I think if it's a sunny weekend, people can get out and have fun, meet each other again, and just a sort of feel-good factor, a bit like the Olympics in 2012. You can measure things in the economy, but also just from a morale perspective, and it's quite hard to measure these kind of things in terms of how many replica models of the Queen are going to be bought and things like that. And hopefully it goes without a hitch. Usually the UK also is very good at this kind of thing, the pomp and pageantry. We see it at Wimbledon, we see it at big sort of royal events, and it's something that we do quite well at. So I think it's a chance to sort of show off to the rest of the world that Brexit may have happened, but we still remember the empire and things like that. And I think people like the Queen as well. It's a nice opportunity to remember that the Queen's been on the throne for 70 years. She is revered around the world. She seems to have done a very good job, and generally in terms of popularity with the royal family, her stock has never been higher. So I think it's a nice time to come together and remember what she's done stellarly for every day for the last 70 years.
Thank you, Simon. We are, of course, staying with this story as today's show is in celebration of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. No other British monarch has ever reached 70 years on the throne. Inevitably, the entire world will be watching the royal family over the next 4 days, and Commonwealth citizens will make up the bulk of this number. The empire that Her Royal Highness was born into is long gone, but she still reigns far beyond British shores. The Queen is head of state in 14 other nations, including Canada, Australia, Papua New Guinea and the Bahamas. Until recently, it was 15, but Barbados cut ties with the monarchy in November, and several other Caribbean countries, including Jamaica, say they plan to follow suit. Earlier, I had the pleasure of speaking with Baroness Scotland, the Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, to discuss the current mood among member states. Can you please quantify the significance of what this Platinum Jubilee weekend is and means for British soft power, for British people and to the entire Commonwealth?
Well, I think this is a very precious moment. I think if you look at the emblem that the Queen is for so many of our people right the way through the Commonwealth, we've got 2.5 billion people, 54 countries, and 19 of those countries are in Africa, and Nigeria is the biggest of all of them. So we've got more than 200 million people in Nigeria. And the Queen has had such a long-standing love of the Commonwealth, love of the countries within Africa and every other region. So I think if you look at her 70 years, she has dedicated her 70 years to the people of the Commonwealth. I think she was 21 when she first said that it didn't matter whether her life was long or short, the whole of her life would be dedicated to our service, the people of the Commonwealth service. And in those 70 years, since she became Queen at the age of 25, that's exactly what she's done. And I think some people don't understand why does she love the Commonwealth so much. And I think the reason is that when she was a teenager, when she was growing up, of course, she grew up during the years of the war. And so she would have watched her father struggle to maintain the values that we all hold dear, equality, the opportunity for peace and justice. But when the United Kingdom was at its worst, at its most vulnerable, what she saw was people coming from the 5 corners of the world, from the Commonwealth, coming to give succour to the United Kingdom. And when nobody else stood with the United Kingdom, the Commonwealth did. And they didn't come as conscripts, they came as volunteers to absolutely support this vision of equality and parity. So I think that dedication that we showed to her, she reflected right back to us. And she's never forgotten it. So when at 21, she said, I'm going to dedicate myself, it was because she knew and she'd seen and she'd felt that this love and support had been reciprocal. She loved the Commonwealth, but the Commonwealth loved her. And the Commonwealth had saved the United Kingdom. Wow. And she's never forgotten it.
Wow, so right. It's such an extraordinary period of history, isn't it? And of course, she discovered she would be Queen in Africa. So I'm sure
in South Africa.
It does have a special place in her heart. Of course, you are the Secretary-General of the Commonwealth.
Yes.
Could I ask you to perhaps share some of your precious time with the Queen and tell me what you personally think of her?
Well, I think she's one of the most extraordinary female leaders ever to have lived. People don't always recognise that that's what she was. When she took the throne at 25, the world was really dominated by male leaders. And yet she had the first Prime Minister was Winston Churchill. She had taken over from her beloved father. I mean, she had no expectation of being Queen at such an early age. She had 2 small children. And yet she took up that mantle so seriously. And what I have seen her do is show kindness and affection. Her ability to listen is quite extraordinary. Some people listen, but they don't hear. She listens and she hears, and then she thinks, I have watched her do it, to say, and what can I do to help? How can I make this better? How can I help my countries to stay united, to love each other a little more? And I think I'll never forget what she said in 1953, and I'd like to read it, if I may, because I think this is probably the best expression of what the Commonwealth is about. She said this. She said, "The Commonwealth bears no resemblance to the empires of the past. It is an entirely new conception, built on the highest qualities of the spirit of man: friendship, loyalty, and the desire for freedom and peace. To that new conception of an equal partnership of nations and races, I shall give myself heart and soul every day of my life." In 1953, few people were talking about the equality of races. Few people understood that the concept of the new Commonwealth was of free, independent countries deciding to come together in friendship to create something entirely different. And I think that that has embodied who she is and how she has reigned. So I think she's extraordinary.
The Commonwealth Games, of course, taking place in Birmingham.
Absolutely.
Can we expect that some of the events taking place will be an extension of the celebration?
It's a special Platinum Jubilee year, and that is extraordinary for us to celebrate the 70 years of Her Majesty's reign, but also celebrate the fact that she has been the head of our Commonwealth, and these are our Commonwealth Games.
Wow.
So I think it's going to be the most amazing celebration for all of us.
It will be. As we wrap up, Baroness, I know you're a very busy lady. Thank you for taking your time out to speak with us on Channels today. Could you just give our viewers just some lasting thoughts on why they should be excited about the changing nature of their relationship with Britain in this post-Brexit, post-pandemic era?
Well, I think there is an opportunity for us to really dig deep and come together and rejoice in all the things that we've held in common for the last 70 years. This is about partnership. It's no longer about dominion.
Yes.
It's about independence. It's about the fact that we love each other.
Yes.
And this opportunity to share that love and affection has been an opportunity which enriches not just us, our Commonwealth, but the world. Because if we, from the 5 corners of our Commonwealth, big ones, small ones, landlocked ones, island states, if we can come together and really forge a new pathway for ourselves, in doing so, we're an exemplar for what others outside our Commonwealth can do, because we've got all races, all colours, all regions, all sizes, and that gives us something really special. And I want to thank particularly, if I may, the people of Nigeria, and to thank the government of Nigeria, the president, the foreign minister, all of you, because in the 6 years that I have been privileged to be your Secretary General, I have had the stalwart support of Nigeria and Nigerians. You've got a fantastic High Commissioner here at the moment who's doing a brilliant job, but that friendship and support is extremely valued by me, and I am very touched and will always be touched. I think that I feel very much at home on the African continent. I feel I come home when I come to Africa, and I just want to say a thank you, a warm, heartfelt thank you.
That was Baroness Patricia Scotland, Secretary-General of the Commonwealth. Coming up on Channel's Business Global, I'll be speaking with John Clive Cecil May, OBE, the Secretary-General of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation, about the positive impact the royal scheme is having on millions of young people the world over. And royal biographer Professor Chris Imafidon and royal commentator Thomas Mace Archer-Mills reflect on the scandal and fascination that surrounds the extraordinary monarch. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Let's resume our special programme paying tribute to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee by having a look at some social media posts paying tribute to Her Majesty.
Your Majesty, congratulations on your Platinum Jubilee. For 70 years, you've inspired people with your selfless devotion and service to the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. And throughout your reign, the relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States has grown stronger and closer than ever.
Throughout the years, the joy your visits to the United States have brought Americans and your solidarity with the American people in times of tragedy have deepened the friendship and profound connection between our countries. And Joe and I were so touched by the generosity and welcome you showed to us when we visited you at Windsor Castle last year during our first visit overseas as President and First Lady.
On behalf of the people of the United States, we send you our best wishes to you and the people around the world marking this momentous and historic occasion.
Congratulations, Your Majesty, and have a wonderful Platinum Jubilee celebration.
Before we hear from my next guest, John Clive Cecil May, OBE, the Secretary-General of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation, let's listen to some royal commentary from Palace insiders, Professor Chris Imafidon and Thomas Mace Archer-Mills, both of whom I caught up with earlier this week.
It's never happened before. It's never been dreamt of before. It's been a theoretical debate. So, is it possible to hit the platinum? Platinum was just written there as a mathematical concept, not as a real life event. So it's once in a lifetime. It's never happened before, and it's not likely going to happen in another 100 years based on calculations of the age of Prince Charles, plus the age of William, which is literally 40 this year, and then the age of the son. So if you look at 3 generations, we're not anticipating anything like this again.
We know the British media sometimes seem to be working in cohorts with whoever's at the centre of the royal family. There's been a lot of positive press. Do you think it could turn a little bit dark once they're in London?
I think it could, just for the fact that the British feel slighted. They feel betrayed by the Sussexes. And I was a very big proponent until they decided it was personal over duty. And of course, everyone brought that back to history. Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson, the twice divorced American divorcee. And there was a lot of fallout, as we know, in Oprah and in all of the water under the bridge. But bringing their children here now, and especially after the death of His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, and seeing the Queen as immobile at times as she is, the Queen's legacy with her family is unification, and she wants to heal the rift. She doesn't want to leave the crown in disarray and the heir to the throne upset with his son. And what sort of a legacy would that be from a family aspect, not a political or a state aspect? So I think this is her saying, look, I'm not long for this world, so while I'm here, we need to come together and we need to put family first. We need to bury the hatchet, and we need to show this country in this world that the love of family supersedes anything else.
The Duke of Edinburgh's award is a youth programme founded in the United Kingdom in 1956 by the late Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. It has since expanded to 144 nations, including Nigeria. The scheme's international programme has become the leading youth achievement award, equipping young people for life. It is available for all young people aged 14 to 24, regardless of their background, culture, physical ability, skills and interests. John Clive Cecil May, OBE, the Secretary-General of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation, joined me in the studio earlier to shed some light on projects taking place in Africa. John Clive Cecil May, OBE, thank you so much for joining me here in the studio. It is an absolute pleasure. I think this week I have been feasting upon history because I love it. And what way to learn about history than through Her Majesty the Queen. For our viewers, particularly those who are not fortunate enough to be in London this weekend and those who are in Nigeria. Can you just quantify the significance of this weekend's events?
Oh my goodness! Well, I mean, there's a real buzz around London. I was riding my bike here today, and there's bunting up in the streets. People, I think, are looking forward to a long bank holiday. And my sense is that there is real affection and appreciation for what Her Majesty the Queen has achieved over an extraordinary 70 years.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You are the Secretary General of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation. I know our viewers will be familiar with the Duke of Edinburgh Awards because so many of our young people have participated. And I know the Earl was in Nigeria a couple of years ago before the pandemic. So we have been learning since His Royal Highness's death just how important the awards was to him. Is it also important to the Queen?
The extraordinary thing about the Queen, of course, is that we don't know what she's thinking. She's always kept her views very, very private, as I think, a great monarch would do. But if we look at the award and what it does for young people, if we look at the way in which it helps young people to develop a sense of their own purpose and passion and place in the world, to never give up, to understand the importance of service to their fellow human beings, and also because it was the brainchild of Her Majesty's husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, I'm pretty certain that the award is pretty close to her heart.
I can imagine. We are in changing times. We know that social media does dictate a lot of thought, even if a lot of the news is inaccurate. But the youth are absolutely important. They're fundamental in keeping the legacy of Her Majesty alive. And I know that the foundation have reached over 1 million views, not yet 100 million views. I do want to ask how you are hoping to expand, particularly on the continent.
We've got great ambitions as a young organisation like ours should have. And I say young because although we're 60 years old, more than 60 years old, we're about young people and their potential. Actually, 1 million young people undertaking the award at any one time, wow. Which is pretty extraordinary in more than 130 countries around the world. And yes, the continent of Africa is one of the parts of the world where young people are rising and taking responsibility for themselves and for their communities. As we've seen in the last couple of years over the time of the pandemic, I've been really, really heartened to see that against that media backdrop of painting young people as a problem, what we've really seen are young people rallying round, supporting their communities, helping people who perhaps were shielding from the pandemic, disappearing off and doing supermarket runs and going to the local market and getting food and going to find prescriptions for those that needed it and healthcare. I'm really, really optimistic. And so what we want to do over the next 3 to 4 years is to ramp up the access to taking part in good non-formal education and learning, activities outside school for every young person that we can possibly manage. And what's exciting is that education ministers and heads of state are recognising that what goes on in the classroom is only half the story. If you're going to become a really effective adult, then you need to have experiences like supporting your local community, learning skills outside the classroom, keeping yourself fit and healthy, and learning about leadership. And that's what the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award for Young People does in whatever country.
Thank you so much. John, Clive, Cecil May, OBE, Secretary General of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation. What a pleasure to have you in the studio today. Thank you, John.
Thanks so much.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today, but do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.